Okay, so today we are going to be talking about the books I am reading to help myself learn and gain empathy about the Black experience. The first novel I read was With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. This follows a girl named Imani, and she is a senior in high school, and she has a daughter. She got pregnant when she was a freshman and kept the baby and is very interested in pursuing her dream, which is the culinary arts. I loved this book. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. And I had read Poet X, which is the probably most well-known novel by Elizabeth Acevedo. I read that in early February-ish, and I didn't like it as much, and now I'm thinking it's because I didn't listen to the audiobook. Elizabeth Acevedo is not only a talented writer, but she is an incredible slam poet. And hearing her voice telling this story made it just that more powerful to me, and I really now want to go back and read the Poet X on audiobook because I was touched on so many levels. Also, this character is just incredibly inspiring, and I loved her story. The next book I read was called Something Happened in Our Town by Marianne Solano. This is actually a children's book. I did read it on audiobook. I have never read an illustrated children's book on audiobook. It was very short, but it deals with there has been a killing of a Black man in this community, and it talks about how parents and children are dealing with the aftermath, how they're working on spreading empathy and making change. This is a really powerful book, not only for children, but I think especially for parents. The majority of the audiobook is actually made up of the resources included at the end, telling parents how they can better communicate race-related issues to their children and teach their children empathy. It was so powerful, and on occasion, it had advice directed to particular demographics. For instance, there was a whole section about how the way African American parents communicate racial injustices to their children is different from how white parents do for their children. White parents want to shield their children from things like this, but Black parents don't have that privilege because this is their reality. This is what they deal with every day. It was made very clear in the book that you grow up as an African American in the United States knowing that this could happen to you. And it's horrible. I found this book really powerful. I know it's something that I would have enjoyed when I was little. It was very direct in its message, but I think children's books should be that way, honestly. I also don't think people give children enough credit. Now, I'm not saying that we should expose children to every horror in our world. I'm not saying that at all. But I think our children are born with empathy. I believe that people are born good and that love is taught and thus hate can be taught. I think it's important that we make sure to teach our children love and discourage hate. And I felt that Something Happened in Our Town is something that could really do that for younger children. The next novel, well, I guess it's a play. The next thing I'll be reading for this particular video is Fences by August Wilson. This follows the Maxon family. So it follows Troy, his wife, and his son, and all of their trials, tribulations, triumphs, and joys. It is such a phenomenal play. My favorite part about this is actually how character-focused it is. Plot is definitely there, but it is secondary. This is really shown by the setting of the play. The setting takes place on the Maxons' back porch. That's the only part you see of their world. And I think that's really monumental. It just sets a really stagnant backdrop for a very dynamic story, and I loved that juxtaposition. August Wilson is one of my favorite playwrights. I love his work, and it touches me every time I read it. There is a film adaptation of this. Denzel Washington plays Troy. Viola Davis is another cast member, and it tells such an important story. Though it is historical fiction, it still rings true today, and I would highly recommend this one. Next, I will be rereading The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This is another book that my school taught last year. See how it's good to support diverse books in school? See how that could maybe help people gain more empathy? The Hate You Give follows Star. Star lives in a largely African American community. However, she attends a predominantly white school. This creates a bit of cultural uncertainty, I guess you could say, for Star, because a lot of the time she doesn't feel black enough because she goes to school with so many white kids, and at her white school she feels too black. This book is fantastic. Not only does it deal with police brutality and the importance of using your voice and speaking up, it also shows a powerful family dynamic and the specific ways that the Black community in particular has had to band together. I was doing some research yesterday on the Red Summer of 1919 after I watched John Green's last video. And the Red Summer of 1919 was post-World War I. African American troops were coming back, and they expected they would be given the democracy that they had fought for across the sea, and unfortunately they were not. There were hundreds of deaths during the Red Summer. It was a time that was particularly racially charged in the United States. There were lynchings, there were lootings, white supremacy was rising. It was a horrible, horrible time. And ironically, there was an epidemic around that time as well, the Spanish flu. History doesn't repeat itself, but it does take hints. And I think there is a mirror associated there. So anyway, I was doing research on it, and it talked about what had happened then, and it's so relevant to what is happening now. This novel is just as relevant. It's been a while since I read it, so I wanted to pick it back up. The next novel I will be reading is called Having Our Say by the Delaney sisters. This novel follows Sarah and Elizabeth Delaney. I'm not sure if they're still alive now, but this novel is about their first 100 years of life. Clearly, longevity runs in the family. These two sisters are African American and were shaped by that in their experience on this earth. One of the sisters is more lighter skinned than the other, and I believe that also created a sense of not necessarily cultural divide, but it gave her a little bit more privilege. And that's something I don't feel is discussed enough. And I think that's important to acknowledge. I think that this book will do a powerful job doing that. This is supposed to be an extraordinary story. These women broke so many barriers and boundaries, and I want to learn about their experience and be inspired and motivated and given hope that we will have a better future from this novel. Next, I've started this one. Next, I'll be reading The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. This is Toni Morrison's first novel, and it is the story of an African American girl in her hometown in Ohio. Her biggest dream in this book is that her eyes will turn blue, because that is the eye color of the beautiful white children she's surrounded with. I think that this book will be very important in tackling the ideas of assimilation and coming to appreciate your culture and heritage. That's something I've never had to deal with. I mean, I am white. I was blonde. I have brown hair now, but I have blue eyes, and that's never been something I've had to deal with. So I hope to reap a lot of empathy and understanding from The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. Next, I will be reading this book. It is called Emerging Voices: Readings in the American Experience. It does not solely focus on Black stories in America. I believe there are also some stories from Indigenous peoples, maybe some women, but there are quite a few that I will be reading. This is a compilation of essays, I believe. Some of the ones I will be reading are Don't Let Stereotypes Warp Your Judgments by Robert L. Heilbronner, Black Men and Public Space by Brent Staples, Neither Wasp Nor Jew Nor Black by Michael Novak. I also really want to read The Myth of the Model Minority by Philip K. Chu. There are just so many stories here, and I don't understand why this isn't taught in school. I just don't understand why over and over again the minority experience is expressed through a white viewpoint. Though I think that any author is capable of writing anyone, I think that own voice books and essays and stories are the most important to read. I'm ready to learn, and I hope this book will allow me to do so. This is Black Boy by Richard Wright. It is an autobiography. It is about Wright's life living in the South of America during the age of Jim Crow and segregation. I can't imagine what he went through. But the New York Times book reviewer, Alfred Kazin, says, "It is superb. The Library of America has ensured that most of Wright's major texts are now available as he wanted them to be read. Most important of all is the opportunity we now have to hear a great American writer speak with his own voice about matters that still resonate at the center of our lives." And this will resonate. I know that it will resonate because racism is still here. And it's not going to go away if people do not use their voices and their platforms and their privilege to promote change. This is another one that deals with own voices. I believe that, again, own voices are, in situations like this, the most important to read because you gain more insight with those than you would reading a white author talking about the African American experience, because as much empathy as we can develop, we cannot truly understand what people go through because we are so privileged. So I will be checking this one out super soon. I'm excited to get to it, and I'm excited to learn. All right, I want to talk about some audiobooks I'm also considering checking out. When I say considering, it's because I have checked out the maximum number of books on Libby, so I need to return some so that I can check out some more. But one is called Your House Will Pay by Steph Shaw. Let's see what this one is about. The violent history of Los Angeles, and in the wake of a police shooting of a Black teenager, some families are figuring out how they can help and how their voices are important in the movement. One of the characters is Grace. She is of a Korean immigrant family, and she doesn't think this really has anything to do with her. And another character is Sean, who believes he's had enough of politics and protest. After this crime, however, the two realize that they have to navigate the world differently, and I believe they use their voices for change. So I'm going to check this out as soon as I finish the book I'm currently reading. As for books that I currently have on hold on Libby as audiobooks that I want to get around to ASAP, I have How We Fight White Supremacy by Akiba Solomon. I have White Fragility on hold, that is by Robin DiAngelo. Really, what I'm trying to do here is learn, because I watched a TED Talk recently that I'll link down below, and it was a TED Talk given by this African American man who became really good friends, actually, with a leader of the Ku Klux Klan. This man wanted to learn how fear causes hatred, causes violence, and it was a really powerful TED Talk, and I learned a lot from that 15 minutes of watching, so I can't imagine the magnitude of things I'll learn from reading own voice books. I think, obviously, I'm no expert on this issue, but I think the most important thing that I can be doing right now is listening and learning and educating myself and developing my empathy as far as possible. We are the next generation. We need people to develop their empathy in order to change the world. Below, I will have places that you can donate to or petitions you can sign, places to help make change. I will also have a playlist that I found that is a collection of Black booktubers videos. This is another issue. Black booktubers do not get the recognition they deserve. I think that has very little to do with their content and very much so to do with internalized racism. We need to support people during this time, specifically in our own communities. This is one of my communities now. I'm here, and I want to support the people that are here and were here before me and will continue to arrive. Thank you so much for watching this video, everyone. I hope you got a few recommendations. I hope you will check some of these out. Please let me know if you are reading books by own voices or books about the African American or Black experience that I should check out. I'm always open to recs. So yeah, I will see you all on Sunday. Bye-bye.